One thing that's constant with Salesforce, it's always evolving. And in order to keep up, 3 times a year we're given a seasonal release to stay up to date on all the new updates and features that are hitting our org. And this past October, the Winter 2021 release went live in our sandboxes. We wanted to take some time to sit with it, to learn it, and to work it so that we could share all of our thoughts with you. So welcome to Red Argyle's Winter 2021 Release Roundtable. My name's Shannon Barno, and I'm going to be your host today as we sit down with some of our amazing team members to review this release cycle. 2020 might be keeping us at home this year, but that is not going to stop us. We're excited to talk about these new changes. So let's jump right into it and say a virtual hello to our panel.
My name is Lindsay Keeper. I'm a senior consultant here at Red Argyle. Been with the company for close to 9 years now. And currently my responsibilities are quality assurance, configuration, and top of mind is security processes.
Hi everyone, my name is Alex Maricelli. I'm the Director of Configuration here at Red Argyle. Really excited to talk about this recent release with y'all. Let's dive in.
I'm Ron, apparently the slow guy. I'm responsible for growth here at Red Argyle. I've been in the Salesforce world for many years, and I've done a lot of consulting, helping clients to best leverage the platform.
I'm Aniela Wolkanowski. I'm a configurator at Red Argyle.
I am Ben Bolding, and I'm also a configurator here at Red Argyle.
Awesome. So we're so excited to talk today a little bit about the Winter 2021 release. Because we've had some time with it, we've definitely gotten familiar with it. So I just wanted to jump into the first question. When this first hit your guys' sandbox, I just want to know, what did you think was the most exciting thing that you saw? Did it meet your expectations? How did you guys feel when you first saw everything new that was coming?
I mean, I was excited about a lot of the new features, the versatility on the configurator side, being able to do more without dev. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love our devs, but I want to be able to do more without having to pull in custom code. And I was really excited to see a lot of that.
I would say kind of mimicking that. Also love our devs here, but I think customers for a long time have been wanting to do more configuration. It's great that we can help them with configuration. And I specifically like the dynamic forms and what I think we're going to be able to do with that, or customers are going to be able to do with them. So
awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree, Ron. I nerd out, as these guys know, when I first saw that, and actually putting that into action with now dynamic actions that they're starting to add to Lightning pages. Like, man, that's just gonna, I think, completely change the game to how we are structuring the user's experience. There's also so many updates with flows that I was like, don't need we can now do batches, schedule batches, even enhanced debugging and whatnot within a flow. So it's pretty exciting times to be a configurator.
Yeah.
There were a lot of critical updates that were actually postponed, and we spent a lot of time preparing for those. They will come into effect in a future release, but until I had seen the release notes for this, I hadn't been anticipating them going live. I think with the new UI for release updates, that won't be as much of a surprise. When it comes to security in general, my domain being required, that is not a problem for most folks, especially if you're using Lightning, but we still do have some clients that like to use Classic. And, with my domain and sandboxes and, URLs getting shorter with this current release, it can cause a lot of problems, especially if you have hard-coded URLs and buttons and links and pages and whatnot. And also with my domain, if you have a custom community or a custom site, and that site is it's full of legacy code, those can definitely break. I don't know how I missed it, but I was not prepared for the URL changes that came with the release for Winter 21.
So I know that there's a lot going on from the configuration side, and you guys talked a lot about flows. So I wanted to know if we could go dive into that a little bit deeper, just from the conversations here at Red Argyle. It seems like that's kind of been one of the most exciting features of this release.
I think one of the things that I enjoyed, have enjoyed using, is the ability to debug flows as a specific user. That's been really helpful. Normally, you'd have to go log in as that user and then test the flow out, and then jump back in and do some more building or tweaking. But now you can test right in the flow, which is really nice, and it's a big time saver.
1000%. Yeah, and just to build on that too, I think, as we all know, in summer 2020, right, when the summer release, that they rolled out all of these new fun flow features with regards to no longer do we can do like essentially mirror what we would do in triggers, right, guys? Like before insert, which was a big one. We can now schedule, like essentially mirror the schedule a batch job. So that's been really exciting, and they've been building upon that in this release as well with, gosh, I think it was now record trigger flows now can fire based on like certain set criteria firing. So essentially removing the need for a process builder, you can do it right within a flow, which is, it's just going to clean up some of your technical debt, make it cleaner in the long run. You don't have to go to one spot when you are troubleshooting from an end user or something goes wrong. So it's really great. It simplifies the process. Not to keep talking, guys, but
No,
the UI, I'm a weirdo when it comes to the UI, like and building the flows as everyone knows, I'm weird. But now they have the beta auto layout generator, which is so pretty and so clean. So
I love that. What do you guys think, if we are taking it down to our clients, what do you think our clients are going to be most excited to see, especially with all of these new updates? And then kind of what do you think is going to happen from our side? How do you think our work's going to change, and what can our clients kind of expect to see from Red Argyle moving forward?
I think the thing that the clients are going to be most excited about is probably the dynamic page layouts. I've been tinkering with those mostly on internal projects at the moment, and I love them. And if I love them, clients are going to love them. It makes it so that you can clean up your pages so that when you're in a specific status within a path, or when the information in your record meets a certain criteria, it's not going to display everything. It'll only display what you want to see, which is so nice. I can imagine a lot of people are going to want to clean that up to include all sorts of specific criteria that they want to meet, to be able to guide their users through the proper experience. And that's key. Anything you can do to clean up the UI, to make life intuitive for the user is a benefit for our clients as well as ourselves.
I was just going to say, Ron and Tony, you guys work firsthand a lot with our clients, and you kind of see where their pain points are. From what Aniela was just saying, is there anything new here that's addressing kind of a common motif that you've seen, especially with why people are coming?
Yeah, I think Danielle hit it right on the head, though. I think her explanation was perfect too. And I've been around Salesforce for years, and that has been a request. I can't even tell you for how long. It's been a really long time, and there's been, sometimes we've had to deliver that with dev, the ability to do development to deliver that experience. We got a little closer once they got to record types, but again, still not exactly what was needed. And I think what we have right now really addresses the need that's been around for a really long time. I think the other side of it, which our customers will appreciate, is, a lot of them, it's nice that we've been able to do development for them, and I don't think development is going away. But if we can shift some of that work into configuration, they can take on some of the enhancements themselves. Once they've seen an example, they can maybe do some more of it themselves. I think it lowers their long-term tech debt. So it should be, with everything being in the solution, should be easier for them to really go in different directions, or continue to add new features and functionality without having to worry about the code that maybe they're not just staffed up to support, or that staff, even their own internal dev staff, is always busy with some other, higher priority requirement. So again, to push some of, lower that tech debt, push some of that work to their internal admins, I think they're really going to like it long term.
I think anytime that you can argue that something is maintainable and scalable, a company is going to want it. And you can't make code maintainable and scalable to companies that don't have developers.
Yeah, I'd say another thing about this release too, kind of in the similar vein, is this was really like, I know Salesforce is pushing hard for the clicks, not code, right? And like, I think we see that with, like some basic things that we used to have to do with dev.
I just want to say this. I don't know if I have a really good example in this release, but I don't know. I'll think about it. But I think there's always such a good mix in the releases, and maybe it's because I have been around Salesforce for so long, but I think they've done a great job of not neglecting the core. Like, I feel like there's still new features coming out into the core of the platform, and the core of each of the clouds. So yeah, some of the new stuff always gets a lot of recognition, and it's always shiny and everyone's always happy about it. But every release, there's always something done to the core that, we who have been using the solution for years have always had to figure out a way to work around. And I think flows is a good example. It's just that they're doing a really good job of mixing new features with just extending the capabilities of the core, which when you really look at some of the things they're doing, they're addressing needs that have been around for a long time, and we've just been able to make it work.
And I think you can tell from the things that are being implemented now with this release that they're paying attention to what people want. Mm-hmm. When you go into Salesforce Help and you see that article, that question, that post that somebody has put of how do we, there's no workaround for this. This isn't already mm-hmm. standard Salesforce. Upvote it. Like, let's make it better. Those upvotes really count for something, and it mm-hmm. shows that Salesforce is listening. They are listening to what we want and what users really need, and they're building their releases based on that. And we're seeing those things finally coming forward in this release and in the previous release that people are so excited about. And it's hard not to be excited when the thing you've been looking for is finally here. That said, dynamic forms for standard objects, Salesforce, pay attention. I want those.
6 months.
So you guys actually kind of jumped into something. I just wanted to get a sense for how does this release look different than some of the releases that we've seen with Salesforce in the past? Is there anything that has really jumped out at you guys as very unique this go around?
And there's always been change, like just looking at like even the basic admin settings within Salesforce, right? Like there's things that I think we all have experienced that it's more like the tools for the admins. I'll say that, like, especially when, for example, switching between Lightning and Classic to view all your deleted fields, like basic things like that this release actually addressed. Like, now we have a new button and we can see the deleted fields, like little things like that. Like you can now, when you're adding, there's a setting for adding new custom fields that will automatically populate custom report types. Like, I feel like it was like some basic features that have just been pain points for a really long time, for years, long time, that have not been addressed. So I feel like that was, to me, it was like they went somewhat back to basics. Yeah, there's these new shiny features that we all love, but some of the basic features, like basics functions that were addressed, which are just our time savers at the end of the day.
And the ability to do so much more in Lightning that you were only able to do in Classic. And now they're taking that and they're trying to make it so that you don't have to spend as much time in Classic doing things that feel like they should be basic functionality, whichever platform you're in.
Mm-hmm. I think kind of adding on to that, I think maybe the thing that struck out to me was I find as even a consultant or running a consultancy around Salesforce, it's hard to stay current with all the features. And when I was looking through them, I was like, yet again, how do we help our customers understand what is now available with what they currently own? You don't have to go buy anything else. I mean, there's always new things to buy, but you don't have to. There's these new features that maybe were a roadblock to you and something you were hoping to do, and now there's a new feature, and maybe it was 2 releases ago, and you just haven't taken advantage of it, or something that came out 2 releases ago and then was added to last release and is now even further enhanced in this release that you're not even aware of. And so I think it's Salesforce is doing a great job with all the feature set, and then it's how do we make sure we're helping customers understand with what they currently own, there's way more things they could do for it that would help them. So that was the thing that kind of jumped out at me, and I almost feel overwhelmed every time I see all the releases, and that always feels like the challenge or the hill to go take is like how do we let customers know all these great things are available to them. Sometimes they're not spending the time going through the releases that we are, but there's just great features in there that probably will help solve some business problem for everyone who's using Salesforce.
And how, like, I also look too, Ron, on that vein, like there's so many new tools available to them as well. Like there's a new Lightning page analyzer, you know what I mean? Like how can we help them interpret that, say, here's what it means and how we can support you to make your UI even like that much better.
Yeah, same thing with just like, I think you can now schedule the optimizer to run and just stuff like that. That's like, again, there's really great things, I think, for admins, but in the end of the day, really help the customer realize greater value for their solution if they can take advantage of some of these things.
1000%.
Alex, your face lit up when Ron said the word optimizer. Tell me more about this.
It's an undervalued piece. Our security is one of our top priorities here in making sure that everything's up to snuff. And the optimizer is a really helpful tool to help clean up that, validate all the settings and whatnot, that and combined with health check. So now that we can schedule it and help to keep our orgs really as clean as possible, it's just a win.
I don't know if this is a new feature or not, but I think the optimizer isn't just a report that you run that will get emailed to you, but it's now an application built into Salesforce.
Yeah,
so that's really cool.
So we talked a little bit about security, and security seems to be the forefront of a lot of people's business concerns nowadays. So I just wanted to know if we could dive into what are the security updates that we've seen with the Winter 2021 release?
The Winter 21 release, there was a lot to do with security. Specifically, the guest user security updates that came into play. There was a critical update or a couple of critical updates that would have allowed you to opt out of these secure guest user policies for just one more release until spring 21, where it would be enforced. One thing to note is that some clients may have opted out of those, but they were enforced on accident by Salesforce when the upgrade to Winter 21 happened. We are dealing with the fallout of that for a client right now. We were able to escalate and get Salesforce support to re-enable the option to disable the secure guest user record access setting that was turned on. That setting sets everything for guest users in sites, communities, and portals to private, and it prevents anything. So you can create and you can read records that you own, but you can't edit, delete, view all, or modify all unless you have opted out, which, as you know, can, if you've got functionality in the org that needs that, there's really no workaround at this point besides disabling it. To give you the example of the client without any specifics, is they use they have this site. It's they have part of the site that is for unauthenticated users. So the guest users, unauthenticated users, can go to this site to submit a referral to the county to get help for anybody. The problem being with the Winter 21 release, that functionality is no longer available. One of the other settings that wasn't enabled in Winter 21 is the guest users can no longer own records that they created. If you are familiar with how permissions work, or even if you're not, when you create a record, if you need to make changes to it after you've created it, you need the edit permission, and with the secure guest user record access and no longer owning your own records, you can't edit the record that you've just created. And in our process, we have what we refer to as a referral wizard. So it is a multi-screen form where you have to fill out many different types of records that are all related. And so you need to be able to create and maintain those records throughout the entire process. And not to mention, they need to be able to come back maybe in another day to finish if they weren't able to get through the entire process in a day.
So clearly we're seeing a trend with people working remotely more and more now in 2020. What's something that you think you would recommend people doing on a regular basis to be mindful of their security?
The two things I would call out. First is to make sure that you are using some sort of SSO, single sign-on, or multi-factor authentication that will keep your users more secure, especially with whatever devices they're using. And second would be to use the provided security tools that are within Salesforce. You have the security health check, which has been generally available for a couple releases now and is one of my favorite tools. And then you also have the critical updates and security alerts. Now, security alerts and critical updates have been rehomed to the new release updates page. It was beta as of last release, but now it is the official way to go. And instead of activating critical updates, you have a really nice UI that gives you better visibility on the timing, and it gives you much more information on how to assess your org against that specific update that needs to be applied or opted out of. And then it also gives you the ability to turn it on and test it in a sandbox or your production org, which we highly recommend against, but it allows you to turn it on and test it and then turn it back off again until you find a solution in case it does affect you. Now, it will also tell you when it will be enforced. So these will now be automatically updated on future releases, and those dates will be called out to you, or you can activate it early and leave it activated once you know that you feel confident you are no longer going to be affected.
So Ron, with the new features in Flow, what does that kind of look like for Process Builder?
I'd love to hear from everyone else, but to me, it means, really taking a step back and taking a look at what you do have in place and really deciding, as you look to enhance it, what really should be refactored in Flow. It looks like the direction Salesforce is heading is Flow. All the really cool new things have been in Flow. It really does mean, let's start building your new stuff in Flow, and let's talk about when's a good time to maybe refactor old things from Process Builder into Flow. Those are my two thoughts, and at least something I'd be considering if I was an admin. Aniela, Ben, or Al.
Yeah, I feel like there seems to me like there'd be a possibility in the future that maybe Salesforce is looking to deprecate or get rid of Process Builder. And so I think companies are going to have to start taking a really good look at their organizations, see what process builders they have in place, and decide, do I really need this? Do we need to refactor this as a flow? Do we need to start making plans now for the future? Because a year, 2, 3 years out, they might be like, that's it, we're getting rid of Process Builder, and you're not going to want to be caught off guard. You're not going to want to be waiting for that release to be put into place and suddenly have everything break. So it's probably a good idea now to start thinking flows first. That may need to be your new company motto: flow first. Definitely over Process Builder. And if that means going back and looking at some of the technical debt you already have wrapped up in Process Builders, then now is the time to start contemplating what you have. maybe as part of an annual review, which everyone should be doing, we should specify this, do an annual or a semi-annual review of your orgs, make sure that what you have is good, that your security is good, that the flows and processes that you're using are still good. But maybe during that time is the perfect time to take a look at your processes, the process builders you have. Maybe don't try to hit all of them in one go. Maybe just try to look at one and decide if you still need it. Call us. We'll fix them all for you. You know what I mean? Like, just saying.
Love that plug.
I like that flow first. That even, it even gets our mindset around, before we do any custom development, is there something we can do, with new flows, with new dynamic page layouts, with, there's a lot more that can happen first, before we have to get to dev. So.
I will say, I can't tell you how many scheduled flows I've used in these last couple of months, right? Just because you don't need to run a batch anymore. So it's really, I think, changing the game for our folks, which is great. Ben, I'd be curious from your end, because you are in flow land all the time. How does this impact from your stance in the project you've worked on?
In regards to like process builder versus flows, I think a lot of what Danielle said, really, it's time to start thinking about it. It's definitely not at a place where you can get rid of your process builders, because there's a few like core functionality of process builder. One of the reasons everyone goes to it is changed. There's another one that I can't recall right now, but a lot of those things that like you need to have to trigger this thing that aren't in flow. And so it's not time to go there yet, but you definitely need to realize that like very soon it will probably be in flow, and then there won't be a need for these other things. So so I think heading in that direction and making plans to get there is definitely something that should be happening because it's coming.
What does this mean for workflow rules, guys? They're still there. They're still around, but...
Wait, they're still there? What? Oh, man.
I think definitely looking at flow first. Workflow rules are okay for what they're okay for, but at some point, once again, I feel like they're probably going to be deprecated. They're probably going to go away. It's going to happen some release when nobody's paying attention, and then they're gone. So I would very much advise everyone to start thinking flow first.
At this point, is there really a reason to build with workflow rules? Other than maybe outbound messages? I don't know if that's moved over yet.
I think Ben, I think in email alerts. I know that there's some newer features coming out in the next couple months, but that's at least been in my experience. How about you guys?
I was going to say alerts. I know it's built in with some of the other feature stuff, but
you can use an email alert at a flow. Oh.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
And if you're looking to do alerts right on the desktop, one of the things that we've discovered that's great for that is some of these dynamic page layouts are great for being able to flag an alert right in your page, right where you want it, wherever you want it.
So this has not been the first release that we've seen, and it certainly won't be the last. As we've kind of seen the evolution of releases that have been coming from Salesforce, what are you guys most excited to see in the next releases that we have?
Dynamic page layouts for standard Salesforce objects. That's my big one. I want to be able to make case layouts easier for service members to fill out only what they need and none of the, that whole garbage in, garbage out. The less stuff the less stuff users see that they don't need, the less bad information is going to end up in your org.
I think one of the things I'm most excited about coming is email alerts in Flow, and then also just closing that gap between Process Builder and Flow. And really having like the is changed and prior values and all those things in one spot where you could just build in Flow if you needed to.
Ron and Tony, from a non-configuration side, I think that it's really interesting to see kind of how the businesses absorb these releases. How do you see that going in the next coming months and years?
I think it definitely is going to change the way we bid work, where historically we'd hear something and immediately, our spidey senses would go up and it would be, okay, this particular requirement deliverable is going to require dev, and, it's going to, and when you bring dev, it immediately the price goes up. It has nothing to do with the developers or cost of developers. It's just that the unit of work you have to do, the pre-planning, the testing, all of that just takes additional time. And now I think when we hear stuff, it'll be great to be able to bid more of a job with configuration first. And I think clients will see some of that benefit in our estimates, and in our time to deliver value, get something completed for them. There will always be a place for dev. Customers have been thinking more and more about digital transformation and what the journeys their customers need to go on and how they can use digital to differentiate. And so I don't think any one solution will ever be able to deliver everything from a config perspective, but to do more of the basic stuff they've been asking for years is going to be huge.
So if anyone were to have any questions from what we've talked about today at this roundtable, would help at Red Argyle be a good resource for them, or how best would we go about answering those questions?
Yeah, that probably would be the best way. That comes in, we have different people look at it. We'll funnel that to the right person. So yeah, that's the best way to ask us a question or to get more information.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time this afternoon to chat with me a little bit about this release, especially as it's been out and we've been working with it. Like we said, if you have any questions about anything that we've talked about here, email us at help@redargyle.com. We'll put a link up here. Also, we'll put one in the description as well. But thank you guys so much. I loved all your input, and I'm super excited about working more in this release.
Excellent.
Thanks, Shannon.
Good job, Shannon.